Vietnam is a Southeast Asian country known for its beaches, rivers, Buddhist pagodas, and bustling cities. Hanoi, the capital, pays homage to the nation's iconic communist-era leader, Ho Chi Minh, via a huge marble mausoleum. Ho Chi Minh City, formerly Saigon, has French colonial landmarks, plus Vietnamese War history museums and the Cu Chi tunnels used by Viet Cong soldiers. Compared to Asian countries such as Thailand or Malaysia, Vietnam is still a sought-after destination. Some areas in Vietnam have not urbanized yet. Therefore, it is quite pristine and suitable for visitors to find strange feelings. Coming to the mountainous area in the north, staying with an ethnic family, and seeing the sunrise at the peak are appealing activities that help you eyewitness the magnificent landscapes in Vietnam. If you want to relax in a quiet place, Hoi An ancient town with old quarters is a preferable choice. In case you are a fan of water sports, Mune should be a great destination. Vietnamese people use all part of the pig to cook meals. It includes organs like lung, kidney, liver, and heart. It does sound gross, but it actually tastes okay to some and good to many. The only exception is hair. Even toes are used to make the broth, and the soup contain all the inside part like lungs, kidney, liver, and tripe, and etc. are called palau. It is a very popular hot pot in the northern mountain of Vietnam. And did you know that Vietnam rice production ranks second in the world after Thailand? Vietnam is a lower middle income country with a low cost of living. Vietnam is a member of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and the World Trade Organization. The current population of Vietnam as of 2024 is 99,295,033. Also, Vietnam is the only country in the world where people eat raw animal blood, and the popular ones are made from freshly killed duck, pork, and chicken. Symbols of Vietnam flag. The red background symbolizes revolution and bloodshed. The golden star represents the main 5 classes in Vietnamese society: intellectuals, farmers, workers, entrepreneurs, and soldiers.
Culture and belief. Vietnamese culture is one of the oldest culture in the world, which has undergone changes almost 4,000 of years. Some people said Vietnam culture has influence from Chinese culture, but there is a study shows culture of Vietnam has its own characters, and is a parallel development to Chinese culture. Culture is a part of the result of the harmony between Buddhism of the East, Confucianism of the North. It also the result of the process of preserving and maintaining the moral values of the Vietnamese people over the centuries, such as patriotism, mutual love, water, remembering the source. However, in a certain angle, Vietnamese culture still has some stereotypical and qualitative elements. Vietnam cultural differences depending on different religious and ethnic groups. Vietnam has a huge diversity of cultural values and traditions, from the mountainous areas to the coastal and the plain. Traveling from the north to south, tourists can see the experience many differences and uniqueness in people's lifestyle, tradition, norms, and accents of language. Vietnamese cultural values and facts. Typical Vietnamese culture traditions. During the historical development process, after many changes and reforms up to the present time, Vietnam still retains intact typically cultural activities such as the tradition of welcoming the New Year, marriage ceremony. The tradition of welcoming the New Year. Lunar New Year is associated with the desire for a new year of peace and a good harvest. During Tet, there are typical activities such as wrapping Ban Chang, year-end rice tray, New Year spring travel activities, and New Year greetings and lucky money. Wedding in Vietnam. Wedding in Vietnam earlier was arranged mainly by parents and people were married very young. However, things have changed so much in recent years since Vietnam opened the door to the world and tourism picked up in early of 90s. Vietnamese youth enjoy a greater freedom of choosing the time of their marriage and their partner. Weddings are still mostly held in the traditional manners with elaborate rituals and ceremonies. The date for wedding was carefully selected by Feng Shui master or most respected man in the clan. Vietnam cultural values. Typical cultural values created the characteristic of Vietnamese society and form typical social codes of conduct. Family cultural values. The tradition of loving children and respecting the elderly in the Vietnamese family, as well as the family structure living in the multi-generational model. Elderly family members often have a voice because of a lot of knowledge and experiences, often obey the instruction of adults. Village and community cultural values. The culture of the village and the community lifestyle of the Vietnamese people is clearly shown through the proverb self-harm brother and buy closer neighbor. Everyone always has the spirit to help and embrace each others. Vietnam customs and traditions. Vietnam national dress is the Áo Dai, which has undergone many modifications to get the current shape. Vietnamese Áo Dai is divided into two main categories, namely men's Áo Dai and women's Áo Dai, with an indispensable accessory that is turban. Áo Dai first appeared in the Nguyen dynasty with the name of the cross-collared robe. In the 17th century, it was called the four-parts dress. In the 19th century, it was the five-parts dress, the Le Moor Áo Dai in the 20th century. From the 1970s until now is the traditional Áo Dai. Áo Dai is not only a kind of costume, but it also shows Vietnamese cultural value through many ups and downs of history. Not only is a symbol of tradition, but also imparts cultural, moral, and aesthetic values of Vietnamese people. Vietnam religion. Most of Vietnamese people worshiping their ancestor and believe in animism. In reality, religion in Vietnam has historically been largely defined by a mix of Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism, known in Vietnamese as the Tam Giao, triple religion. Catholicism is also practiced in modern Vietnam. Ancestor worship is common in Vietnamese culture. Most Vietnamese, regardless of religious denomination, practices ancestor worship and have an ancestor altar at their home or businesses. Traditional music. Vietnamese traditional music is formed and developed throughout the process of working and living of the people. Folk music and traditional music always play an important role in the lifestyle and development of Vietnamese culture. Music means of conveying educational content, ethical and spiritual values, a way of conveying love as well as a reflection of people's personal and emotional life. At first, music was simply lyrics or lullabies, then underwent the process of music interference from the other countries, typically the music of the Han people, but gradually developing more professional music genre such as Ca Tru, Quan Ho, and the culmination is the royal court music.
For now, let's talk about the land. The land in Vietnam, a strip of land shaped like the letter S, lies on the eastern part of the Indo-Chinese peninsula. It is bordered by China in the north, Laos and Cambodia to the west, the East Sea to the east, and the Pacific Ocean to the east and south. 3/4 of its territory comprise mountains and hills, and it has over 3,000 kilometers long coastline. In addition, Vietnam is known as the land of the ascending dragon. The landform of Vietnam is mainly hills, and densely forested mountains. Most of its population lives on the 20% that is level ground. 40% of its 331,688 square kilometers is mountainous, and the remaining 40% is hills. Approximately 25% of land is under cultivation. Also, Vietnam is called the land of the Blue Dragon because Vietnam is close to the ocean with rich aquatic products and beautiful scenery. It is called the Blue Dragon country. While China is called the Red Dragon country, North Korea is the White Dragon country, and Japan is the Black Dragon country. For now, let's talk about the people. The Vietnamese lifestyle is the Vietnamese people's lifestyle is characterized by strong family bonds, traditional values, and a deep connection to their heritage. From bustling city streets to serene rural landscapes, the lifestyle of Vietnamese people reflects a harmonious blend of tradition and modernity. The Vietnamese have been described as energetic, sentimental, pragmatic, entrepreneurial, proud, industrious, and hardworking. As is true with the Chinese, their natural tendencies often seem to fly in the face of what is expected of good communists. In Vietnam, they eat in the way of eating with chopsticks and sit on a mat on the floor in the old days. But lots of families eat on chairs and tables like Westerners. But when many guests are coming from them, without having enough chairs, they will sit on a mat. The Vietnamese eat loudly, slurping, sucking, and chomping.
The cuisine of Vietnam is rich tapestry woven from centuries of history, blending influences from various cultures, climates, and regions within the country. Here's an overview of the history of Vietnamese cuisine. Indigenous roots. Vietnamese cuisine has its roots in the indigenous culinary tradition of the Vietnamese people, which relied heavily on rice cultivation, fishing, and farming. Rice has been a staple of Vietnamese cuisine for thousands of years, and it forms the basis of many dishes. Chinese influence from 111 BCE to 938 CE. Vietnam was under Chinese rule for over a millennium, from 111 BCE to 938 CE. During this period, Chinese culinary techniques, ingredients, and flavors greatly influenced Vietnamese cuisine. Elements such as stir-frying, noodle making, and the use of soy sauce became integrated into Vietnamese cooking. Independence and expansion from 10th to 19th century. Following centuries of Chinese rule, Vietnam gained independence and began to assert its cultural identity. Vietnamese cuisine continued to evolve, incorporating influences from neighboring countries such as Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand. This period saw the emergence of iconic Vietnamese dishes such as pho, a noodle soup, bun cha, a grilled pork with noodles, and goi kun, a spring rolls. Colonial influence from 19th to 20th century. French colonization in the 19th century had a significant impact on Vietnamese cuisine. French culinary techniques, ingredients like baguettes, coffee, and dairy products, as well as dishes such as banh mi, as Vietnamese sandwich, and ban kun as steamed rice rolls were introduced. However, Vietnamese cuisine retained its distinct flavors and ingredients while incorporating French elements. War and division from 20th century. The Vietnam War and subsequent division of the country into North and South Vietnam in the mid-20th century further influenced Vietnamese cuisine. The southern region, with its warmer climate and fertile land, developed its own culinary traditions, while the North maintained its own distinct flavors and dishes. Reunification and globalization from 20th century to present. Following the reunification of Vietnam in 1976, Vietnamese cuisine experienced a period of revival and innovation. Economic reforms in the late 20th century led to increased trade and globalization. allowing Vietnamese cuisine to spread worldwide today. Vietnamese food is celebrated for its fresh ingredients, complex flavors, and balance of textures. Throughout its history, Vietnamese cuisine has been shaped by a diverse array of influences, including indigenous traditions, Chinese and French colonizations, regional variations, and global trends. Despite these influences, Vietnamese cuisine has retained its unique identity, characterized by its emphasis on fresh herbs, vegetables, seafood, and the artful balance of flavors.
Vietnamese cuisine. Vietnamese cuisine features fish sauce, soy sauce, rice, fresh fruits, vegetables, herbs, and spices. Emphasis is on serving vegetables and herbs as side dishes, with pork, chicken, shrimp, cockles, and beef being common meats. Marin Boris, a New York Times food critic, praised Vietnamese for food its aromatic, spicy, and clean flavors, with southern dishes being spicier, sweeter, and oilier, influenced by exotic fruits and vegetables. Traditional and famous Vietnamese cuisine. Here's the example of Vietnamese cuisine. Their traditional and famous dish are the number 1, the pho noodles. Pho is one of the more iconic dishes in Vietnam, a broty noodle soup with both meat and vegetable options. While it is enjoyed at all times of the day, locals typically serve pho as the first meal of the day, which may come as a surprise to those used to pastries of fry-ups. You'll normally be able to customize your pho, the most common flavors being beef or chicken with different stocks and spice mixture. And the second one is banh mi or Saigon sandwich. Historically linked to Saigon or Ho Chi Minh City, you'll actually be able to find banh mi just about wherever you are in Vietnam. This baguette-style sandwich is filled with deliciously fresh ingredients. First made popular during the 19th century under French colonial rule. Pork, pate, tofu, fish, and more are just some of the choices of filling to be found typically from street food vendors. And the last example is loy kun or translucent spring rolls. Ideal as a snack or as a side dish, these delightful crispy package are totally unmissable. Loy kun is also great for picky eaters with a wide variety of fillings on offer. From vegetable to pork, fish to shrimp, these crunchy delicacies are not unlike spring roll imitations to be found back home. Dip in rich peanut or fish sauce for the ultimate Vietnamese taste experience. Vietnamese street food culture is globally recognized for its diverse and accessible offerings, promoting a culture of dining out and enjoying food on the go. So, there you have it, some of the traditional and famous Vietnamese dishes, one of the world's most distinctive and varied cuisines in Vietnamese. Vietnamese food is known for using a variety of flavors and ingredients. Usually, it consists of 5 distinct components. The number 1 is bitter, spicy, salty, sour, and sweet. In Vietnamese cooking, using fresh herbs and vegetables is also crucial. And just so you know, Vietnamese cuisine places a greater emphasis on the light, fresh flavors of herbs and vegetables while using very little oil and dairy. Vietnamese food is therefore regarded as one of the healthiest in the world.
Cooking methods of Vietnamese. Vietnamese food is varied, distinctive, and because it is comparatively low fat and high in carbohydrates, generally healthy. Traditionally, cooking was done over a fire. So, preparation is by boiling, steaming, barbecuing, and frying, not roasting or baking. Braising or simmering. In Vietnam, it is usually done over charcoal. This is the technique used for making soups and stews. Long slow cooking in a covered pan creates succulent tender meats, and in a way to glean flavor from ingredients that need time to develop. Usually, the cook starts with hot oil, and adds crushed or chopped aromatics. The meat is then added and soaked in the now infused oil. Once the meat has been seared, the vegetables and cooking liquids are added, depending on the recipe. Cooking time will vary, but when the cooking liquid is very reduced and only a small portion remains, you should be left with a very juicy, tender product and a sauce that is wonderful over rice noodles. Stir frying is a rapid cooking over intense heat. The hot oil used seals and coats ingredients, and what little liquid escapes serves to steam the food. It is important that your wok or pan is preheated. Putting food in a cold wok takes more time and causes the food to overcook. Because stir frying is such a fast process, it is essential to have all your food and utensils organized before you start. Deep frying. To produce perfectly fried crispy food, there are several things to remember. Your oil, peanut, is very popular in Vietnam. Should be about 375 degrees to help maintain this heat. It is advisable to allow your foods to reach room temperature before adding them to the oil. Adding too much food to the oil at once can also lower your oil's temperature drastically. As your oil heats back up, your food will be getting greasy. This is why it is best to fry in small batches. Keeping the oil hot as necessary, safety is also a prime concern when deep frying. Steaming is a common way to cook foods using moist heat, without removing nutrients the color the way that boiling does. The Chinese prefer bamboo steamers, but in Vietnam, cooks are partial to aluminum or stainless steel pots with metal inserts. Since steam is given off by almost all cooking foods, Vietnamese cooks tend to make efficient use of space and energy by steaming veggies over cooking rice. For example, when steaming, never rapidly boil the water. Rather, keep it a steady simmer. Be sure to be cautious when removing the lid off, as steaming fat steam burns can be very painful. Grilling or barbecuing. Many Vietnamese recipes depend on the special flavor that grilling food over an open flame imparts. Vietnamese cooks believe so strongly in the superiority of this method that even simmer and stir fry over this type of flame. It is important to note that wood or charcoal is used, not the compressed briquettes that we use in the West. A good compromise is building a fire from briquettes, and then adding the wood chips to the coals when they have turned white. After the flames from the wood chips have died down, you are ready to cook. Experiment with various types of wood chips to achieve the flavor you prepare.